Hey, Batman here, Robin, and today we're going to show you 3 different ways to stretch farm fence wire, net wire, woven wire, field fence, whatever you want to call it for your agricultural or livestock needs. Now, when we started out using something like this, and now we use something like this, and you're probably wondering why, because this costs a lot more. What we're going to do is we're going to start off with the cheapest option, which is going to be this one right here. This is how I cut my teeth. Stretching woven wire was what we called it: field fence, agricultural fence, net wire, whatever you want to call it, with 2x4s. Premise is that you just smash the wire between these. It grabs it well enough that you can pull on it and it'll get it nice and tight. We're going to find out how tight we can get it today. Next up, we're going to try the Pagic Magic. I've never used one of these. Lastly, we'll use the strain right wedge board, which you've seen in almost all of our videos. Another option that is very similar to the wedge board, this is a different style wedge board. Rather than having 2 halves, you simply lay the wire on the top of this. You drive wedges down here and it pinches between the wedge and this board. This and this function very much the same. I just like this a lot better. However, when we get into taller wires like 8-foot game fence, we typically have to use it because Strainrite has not yet released an 8-foot tall version of their clamp or their wedge board.
My money's on this.
Maybe it works better than I remembered.
I think we're gonna get the wire the tightest with this, because this is not just a 2x4 like you said.
Oh.
This is premium Idaho forest.
Not available from SWI, but you probably can pick it up from Home Depot. So for today's project, we're going to be using the high quality X fence that we stock. The nice things about this wire is that it is also high tensile. The high tensile wire is going to have a greater breaking strength, but it's going to tend to be more brittle and less flexible. The good part about that is that when animals hit it or push on it, it will have a memory, it'll bounce back. It won't stretch out and stay stretched out. Love the product, and we're gonna see how it stretches up today. Hopefully we'll get a nice even stretch on this stuff, and you'll be able to see the benefits of using high tensile wire. Bush pigs coming in clutch. I think I found the first problem. If you're gonna make this, probably oversize your holes maybe just a teeny bit, so you don't have this. Okay, yeah. Before we get too carried away, something we need to talk about is why we're stretching here instead of past the brace. There's a thing in fencing called hard stapling, and that is where you will pull past your point and then you will staple off your wire to this end post. I would have the wire all stretched up and I'd staple this off to this end post, and I'd smash those staples all the way into the wood as hard as I could get it, because I want that to hold the tension so that when I let off, the tension is hopefully still there, and then I can finish tying my wire. Well, guess what? This is pipe. We don't have that option. But it's not a good idea if you do have that option, because it doesn't work very good. It can dent the wire, it can take the coating off the wire, lead to all kinds of problems that you don't want. So hard stapling is something that you should practice getting away from if you are using that in your farm or ranch right now. When you stretch before, it gives us the opportunity to tie off all our wire, then release the tension. You got it? I hope I got this thing on right. I don't even know.
No, it was like that.
It's like that.
I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, that makes one of us. As always, we're gonna make sure our chain's not twisted. We're gonna hook that end on here. And because of the way I've got to do this, I'm going to just use the other end of this chain. What we're using is called a boundary strainer. So much better than a come along. I don't have all the sharp cables and stuff to deal with. I don't have spools to deal with. Spool never gets full if I need to stretch a whole bunch. Lots of good reasons to use a boundary strainer instead of a come along. We don't have any come alongs on any of our trucks anywhere, because this is all we use to stretch anything. The other end of my chain can be a place for me to grab onto my post. And again, make sure this isn't twisted. And if I open these jaws up all the way like that, it makes it really easy to just pop that in there. I'm just gonna put a little tension on the bottom one. Okay. Oh, this isn't the right handle. In case you're wondering, this is what we had. This is called a chain strainer, and if you'll look, it has on one end, instead of having a hook, it has a wire grab. Little different tool. It's used for stretching individual strands of wire. As we stretch this, it should just stand right up for us. So already what we can see having happened is that the wire is slipping through. So we've got wire exposed here, where up here, the stay wire is still inside the 2x4. Things are slipping even though we had all that nice and tight. That is gonna make it really hard to get this middle tight. The only place it's really grabbing well is right where we're providing extra friction and tension, because the chain's squishing everything together. We're at about as tight as we could possibly get this, not to mention the middle's not as tight as we would want it. So we got it about 110 maybe on that one. And you can see down here at the middle, we're only at 100. We're gonna give one more crank. We'll see what happens. Like it's doing it, but we're losing even more and more tension on the middle. You can see down here where we've already got nice curves, and that's not what we want. We want to see that stay wire just as straight as it is down there on the end post. We're already stretching at different tensions all over the wire because we haven't used the right tool for the job. Not to mention, how long is this thing gonna last us? I don't know. I might have to build a new one if I was gonna properly tension my wire. The reason that these work for people is because they aren't getting their wire to the proper tension. They're not really getting their wire tight. So we were at 100. So we almost doubled the tension with one pull. See what we're at on the top. See the top's even coming up with something a little different. I think that might have been lying a little bit. We're at about 160 maybe.
I don't trust that first number.
I can't get it on there. It's pretty tough, and I don't know how accurate of reading. This is a lot more accurate if we had a single strand or if we had stay spacing that's further apart. On this, it's really hard, but you can see we got it quite a bit tighter with one more pull. So we are at the limit of what that 2x4 can handle. I'm a little nervous to do this one, I'm not gonna lie, just because I feel like it's gonna strip all kinds of knots. Let's put it on back here. So for this one, even though we've talked about the proper place to stretch at is up here, we're gonna stretch it back here only because I fully anticipate that this is going to slip, and there's a good chance that it's gonna ruin some wire, and I don't wanna ruin the wire that we're still using for our demonstration, so we'll see how it works. So the first step to using this is to weave it alternating through the line wires. The other thing about this stretcher is that it's really designed for one height, because you're supposed to slide this notch up into this wire, and then after the wire's inside this notch, you slide this up, lock it down. I don't know what the purpose of that, maybe to hold it? I'm not 100% sure, but that's the way I think they want you to do it, so. I'm barely in it, are you in it?
About a quarter.
Okay, then you're supposed to tighten these down. All right, so this one, since we only have one pull point, we're gonna hook it onto this pull point right here, and we're gonna give her the beans. And that's one of my biggest concerns right out of the gate, is we only have one place to pull. That bar looks pretty light. There you go, it's all yours. Ooh, see, we're already slipping. That's about as tight as we're gonna be able to get. So we've got about 100 in the middle here. Ooh, at the top, we're not even 100. We're only, shoot, we're way less than 100. We're probably 60. Like, I can just tell by feeling this isn't near as tight as what we had, even the 2x4. Yeah, and we're already slipping. So this is what I was worried about. Here's where we slipped with the 2x4. But you can see we're already pulling all these knots because it's relying on the friction between it being woven in and each one of these knots to be able to hold the tension. This is a very short run. If we were pouring like a quarter-mile run of this wire, there's going to be a lot of ground friction and a lot of things that possibly snag us up, and we're going to be pulling stays out of this stuff like crazy. Go ahead and just keep cranking on it, and we'll illustrate a little bit more what I'm talking about, because it's just pulling against those stays. Now the stays are going to start slipping, and we already see again that we have this nice big bow right there in tension. Yeah, that's as tight. You're just gonna keep slipping. It's surprisingly a lot stronger than I thought it would be. I thought maybe we'd start bending this bar, which I can't tell that we are, but maybe better than a 2x4, maybe. Probably gonna do about the same job as a 2x4 would. Now you know. You ready to do the right way? So this would probably make a pretty decent chain link rake if you were looking for one. This is probably just a little bit fancier than the chain link rakes that we have. The difference between woven wire, field fence, net wire, whatever you want to call this, and chain link is we're not trying to get chain link zinger tight like we are this stuff. If you're looking for something to stretch chain link, this would probably work, honestly. So what we're going to attempt to do now that this wire is a little bit bent is if we put this board on there nice and straight, we should be able to pull that back out and get it to the correct tension all the way up and down the wire. So we're going to try and do that, hopefully successfully. Nice thing about these two is that you'll see this is all round, so there's no hard kinks in this wire. It's got a nice rounded. Some people will actually take these out so that they don't take any wedges, and they'll actually use big bolts with nuts. I'll weld bolts onto this and put nuts on so they can just run it down with an impact. It's maybe just a little bit easier, but I just have never done that yet. One more. There we go. So this is the wire that was curved, and we were able to uncurve it using this board by making sure that all the line wires are tightened up straight with the board. And then we were able to pull the heck out of it. I'm a little winded. That's a lot of stress. That's a lot of stress. That's already, I guarantee you, tighter than any of the other two options that we've tried. Top wire first. Moment of truth. So already the top wire is about 160 based on this. Middle wire, hopefully, reads about the same. Man, this is really tough to get on here. Yeah, so you can see the middle, we're at like 340. So that's good tight wire. That meets my approval. The other thing I can see is all my stay wires are nice and straight. I don't have any curved stay wires, so it tells me that some of the line wires aren't as tight as others. That's what we're looking for. That's why we use what we use, because we're able to get a good solid result all the way consistently from the top of the wire down to the bottom of the wire. The other thing that's important to note is that if you have bad wire, you could put this stretcher board on here, put it on just right, and still have places where the wire is not as tight as others. And that's because of the weaving process. That's why it's just as important to use good tools as it is to use good wire, which is why we use X-Fence. And that's all we sell in our company is X-Fence, because it is simply the best. There's other stuff out there. We were using Tornado before. We had a hard time getting that for a while and actually made the switch to X-Wire based on the recommendation of the fence companies that we went and saw in the United Kingdom, Rory Sampson and Peter Redgewell. Even though they have wire made in the UK, they're still importing it from New Zealand because the wire is so good. So using good tools, using good wire makes all the difference in the world. But to get it tight, you're gonna have to have the right tools. Boundary strainers and wedge boards are absolutely where it's at if you wanna get your wire solid tight. The other key is if you'll notice, we don't have an ordinary brace. We need a brace that can hold up to that kind of tension. But once we put that tension on, it doesn't matter. I can come back in 10 years, 20 years, and this wire is just gonna be every bit as tight as it is today. If you wanna get your wire tight, link down below to all the tools we use today.
I'm Dan with SWI, and oh, you go first.
Oh, it's me first? I'm Mark with SWI.
I'm Dan with SWI, and don't forget, we are Wyoming's Fence and Gate Company.
Lest I say America's Fence and Gate Company, and we hope you have a good dang day.